Hello everyone and welcome back once again to the Architect deck building contest videos. We're back with July's contest and I'm joined as always by my good friend Olivia Gobert Hicks. Olivia, what's going on?
I like that it's as always, and I think this is the fourth time we've done this.
It is the fourth time.
We're just trying to set a trend here, yeah.
Still, yeah. We're setting the norms to expect. But yeah, so I'm here once again. We had a really good contest this month, Olivia.
Yeah.
I was super happy with how this prompt turned out. Tons of really good submissions this month.
Yeah. Well, quickly before we jump into it, a quick shout out for last month's winner, Dork for Short's Toy Story inspired Kellen the Kid deck. Congratulations to them. But for this month, we've got make your favorite format into a commander deck. So the prompt was 60 to 100. Take your favorite tournament format deck and turn it into a commander deck, honoring the original.
Yep, I actually used to write articles for EDH Rec, Olivia. This was like before we were even friends years ago. That was my article series, was I got to do all this, and I was super impressed with how the submissions turned out. We kind of wanted entries to capture the essence of the deck that inspired their commander deck, and people just knocked it out of the park.
We love that.
So many good submissions. Yeah. There was one actually that, shout outs to your co-host over at Commander at Home, Brian Kibler. There were a few submissions that specifically shouted him out. So it's nice.
Don't worry, we didn't pick any of those.
We didn't pick any of them. Felt a little biased.
But thank you.
But it was still nice. It was nice to see that like all these people like still remembering all these like tournament players and then really doing them justice when they're taking these decks to Commander.
Absolutely. Well, we also had a ton of Lantern Control decks in here. That was kind of like our biggest, submission archetype that we saw. We also saw a lot of mono red Ruby Storm decks, since that's apparently the new hotness in Modern. Not that I would know. I have, people that tell me because I don't know what I'm doing in those formats. But anyway, let's get to it and see what we've got for our top three.
Well, our first finalist is submitted to us by user MilesTag198, and they submitted a Mishra Eminent One deck, and this one is all about Grixis in the Pauper format. So Miles had a lot of really cool things to say. First off, they love artifacts, and they love cheating artifacts into play and then grinding them into value. And this deck does exactly that. So with Mishra Eminent One, you're able to make copies that are 4/4s of all your artifacts that are in play. So you're able to really crank through and get a whole bunch of ETB and leave the battlefield triggers, which this deck just does super, super well. There's cards like Cabal Paladin that reward you for casting a bunch of historic spells, plus things like Impact Tremors and Krark Clan Shaman to make sure you're taking advantage of all the tokens that you're making.
Yeah, our deck builder here mentioned loving arbitrary deck building constraints. So this is a very, very 100% faithful to Pauper's deck. All 99 are Pauper deck cards. The 99 both Commander and Pauper legality, and it of course has a Grixis color identity. So really, really sticking with it here, which is always nice to see.
Yeah, when people commit to the bit in these types of contests, that's an easy way to win us over. Like Gearseeker Serpent, I've seen enough in Pauper. I don't play a ton, but man, everything that makes the Grixis Affinity deck just the deck, it's shown here right now in this Mishra deck. I love it.
Right, and it's wild going through the deck list, seeing so many things that like you don't really see much in like normal Commander play. Like I don't remember seeing Inverted Iceberg come through a lot, or Nihil Spellbomb, or Nimble Right Schematic. Like these are not cards that you're just going to run across anytime, but seeing them here in this really cohesive Pauper deck is very cool to witness and be like, oh, well, I guess I don't need rares to have a very good deck.
Again, just because you have these restrictions like Pauper legal doesn't mean it's not a powerful deck. No, it still totally is.
Yeah. Moving on to our second finalist, this deck has been submitted by Adelmdor. It is a Kess Dissident Mage deck that is an adaptation on the Draco Explosion deck from Modern. Our deck builder has mentioned here that this is an adaptation of the old 60-card Draco Explosion deck, which is the Erratic Explosion and Draco combo to deal 16 damage to an opponent. Using Heretic's Punishment as a repeatable version of Erratic Explosion, or also split cards to keep those mana values relatively high, still have a usable half on them, and then just start honking opponents for a big, juicy mana value.
This deck is just absolutely wild, seeing Heretic's Punishment, Calibrated Blast type of things. And then it's a kind of a genius way to incorporate split cards. I didn't realize that prototype cards were just so powerful until I was looking at this like, oh, the prototype does count the higher mana value.
Absolutely.
That's kind of nifty.
Yeah, so being able to have those cards do basically double duty, right? They can absolutely deal a huge amount of damage to an opponent, but even if it's early in the game, they're not necessarily wasted if they're in your hand because you still have a cheaper outlet to make them useful is a really, really smart way to go through this, I think.
There's also a lot of ways to get kind of alternate casting costs out of things, whether it is like the prototype casting cost to maybe cast things ahead of curve, or cycling different ways to get things out of your hand to make sure you're still doing game actions. Like if you tell somebody, oh, my average mana value in a deck is 6.5, a lot of people will just laugh at you.
Right.
But this deck does a really good job at managing that and finding some workarounds.
Absolutely. And the fact that, of course, like there's still plenty of things that you can play on curve, still plenty of options here to keep you going and maybe hide your strategy until you're ready to deploy it is always a fun way to play out a deck.
Yeah. And when was the last time you saw Undying Flames in a commander deck, Olivia?
I don't think I don't know that I knew that card existed until you mentioned it just now.
So it's from like the old Kamigawa block, and it has that epic mechanic where you don't get to cast anything else for the rest of the game except you do what that card does.
Right.
So you're flipping something every single turn. Plus, like you have some of those enchantments, you have stuff like Heretic's Punishment, so you activate abilities, you're not casting spells. Awesome synergy. This is really good. Adelmore, thank you so much for this one. This is great.
Yeah, this is a great, really inventive build. Finally, we've got our number 3 Rayona Fire Dancer submitted by Big Lil Sis. The strategy and goal, the story, the theme here is Kai Buddha's Wildfire deck.
Big Lil Sis said the first deck they ever owned was Charge of the Boros, and along with that deck was the first introduction to competitive Magic, and a Pro Tour was a Kai Buddha player card that they used to do years and years ago. They're intrigued with how someone gets to be on a card in a deck box and did a deep dive and found the German Juggernaut's 1999 Wildfire deck and took that into account when they were building this deck this month.
So of course we should mention this prompt is very clearly extending a 60 card deck into the Commander format, not necessarily adapting it for maybe gameplay where your friends are going to love you for what you're doing. So there is some land destruction here. Obviously that's not everyone's favorite to sit down to, but this is honoring the theme and sticking with it. So that's why it's here.
They really did commit. And yes, Wildfire isn't the most fun card to play against. Destructive Force, kind of frustrating to play against sometimes. But if your playgroup likes this, then take it up, run with it. This is a great deck for the playgroups that really can jive with that type of play. And thankfully, this deck still has a lot of ways to actually close games out. It's not like it's just blowing up lands and doing nothing. So when Wildfire at all of its variants are dealing damage to a bunch of creatures, they're going to have cards like Wrathful Red Dragon out in play, which whenever a dragon you control is dealt damage, it deals that much damage to any target that isn't a dragon. Well, that's a really easy way to just clear the board and then start dealing damage to all your opponents and start attacking them with these big beefy creatures that you're just making a ton of copies of too, because Ryonia makes a bunch of copies of all your creatures.
Terror of the Peaks is also a great closer here because letting Ryona make all those tokens and then those creatures are entering the battlefield and Terror makes them deal damage equal to their power to any target. Well, that actually lets you finish a game.
That adds up really quick.
It sure does.
This is how I found out that Scourge of the Throne isn't a $50 card anymore, because I just remember being that expensive for so long. So it's a great budget pickup now, everybody.
Yeah.
All these decks, like, I don't think we did this on purpose, but like these are great ways to express just budget but still super powerful decks that you can be playing at pretty much any table.
Yeah, absolutely. And of course, you know, it's a great way to kind of explore things you may have enjoyed watching on tournaments in the past, or even just seeing cool ideas and synergies from currently played formats. And in, you know, obviously like being able to watch things that are coming up in the Pro Tour or see any of those matches and take that kind of knowledge and instill it into a Commander deck or into the format itself isn't necessarily a bad thing. You can find cool synergies. You can keep your pods and your games fresh by integrating strategies from all over. And
we definitely saw that this month. Just, again, across all of the entries, they were so good at seeing, okay, well, this Pro Tour Modern Horizons 3 that we just had, well, dang, look at some of these ideas that we're getting. And an honorable mention, not a finalist, but man, anybody who submitted anything that had Birthing Pod in it, any of those creature combo decks, shout out. There was one that was playing as Mira Holy Avenger.
Oh, nice.
I just absolutely love that. Anytime you get to see that commander too, my heartstrings are happy.
And anything you've watched in the Pro Tours, barring the most recent one with 13 Nadu decks in the top 20, if I remember correctly, there's there's plenty of variety you can integrate here into your commander games. You can find cool combos, cool synergy that you can integrate to keep your games and your decks fresh.
Absolutely. Well, Olivia, thanks for stopping by. And as a reminder to everyone out there, you can vote on who is going to be the winner of the contest. The prize again, $250 to first place in Card Sphere credit, with $150 to second place and $100 for third place. And voting closes on the 24th, so make sure you get those in there. And viewers, you decide who wins. So go to archadex.com, click on the links in the description below and vote. You vote on who gets to win first, second, and third by upvoting those decks. So whatever deck has the most upvotes at the end of the voting period, which is a week from today, will be the winners.
And again, like Matt mentioned, this is chosen by you and not us. You can vote for one of the decks, you can vote for all three of the decks, but definitely be sure to go check them out and help out our amazing deck builders that submitted and were finalists in this, and just pick your favorite and let them win some cash, kind of. Cash for cards, credit for cards.
So Olivia, let's get out of here, but once again, where can everybody find you if they want more of your content?
If they do, not sure why they would, just kidding. You can find me at Elder Dragon Hijinks on YouTube. You can find me on Commander at Home on YouTube. Either of those works. I'm on Twitter and Instagram with my last name at GoBearHicks.
And as always, you can find me on pretty much any social media platform at Mathemus55, and you can find me every Friday here on this very channel for the EDH Rec podcast. But until then, everybody, thank you again for tuning in. Make sure to get your votes in by the 24th, and we will see you next month.
Have a good one, y'all.